All right, in this exercise, we're going to look at a monopolist situation, and we're going to try to figure out whether there is a deadweight loss associated with monopoly. And if there's a deadweight loss associated with monopoly, how much is it? So the first thing we're going to try to do is identify the producer and consumer surplus in a situation that we're not quite used to. We know that the monopolist is going to equate marginal revenue with marginal cost to find QM. They're going to charge the largest price or highest price they can, and that'll be PM in this diagram. So the easy part to figure out is the consumer surplus, and that's going to be the area above the price but below the demand curve, just like always. So we found our consumer surplus. Remember what producer surplus is. It's the extra that the sellers receive for each unit of product over and above what they would have been willing to take and still produce and offer that unit of product for sale. And we think that for this monopolist, the marginal cost curve is going to dictate that amount. If you think about it, when we look at the marginal cost, what does it tell us? The extra cost from producing and offering one more unit of product for sale. Well, if we are a customer and we always offer them exactly the marginal cost, that would make them perfectly indifferent between producing the good or not producing the good. So the smallest amount that somebody could give a monopolist for another unit of product and expect them to make it and offer it for sale would be the marginal cost. So we think we can look at everything in between the price that the seller actually receives and the marginal cost curve as our producer surplus. We have to stop when we get to QM because that's the amount of product we expect to be actually produced and sold. So we think that the total surplus under monopoly is the red triangle and this interesting shaped blue area, that will be what we want to compare a competitive solution to. And the question is, can we look at this monopolist's picture and can we figure out what exactly would happen if we could wave a magic wand and turn this picture into a perfectly competitive industry? How much would this industry produce? How much would this industry charge? And what would the total surplus in the industry be? We could then compare that total surplus to the total surplus we've identified for the monopolist, and that difference should be, in fact, the deadweight loss, if in fact the total surplus under competition would be bigger. Well, we don't have any trouble with this curve, do we? Because the market demand is the market demand, whether you're talking about one seller or many sellers. At least we're going to make that assumption. So we have the demand curve in the picture, and we know that in the industry as a whole, it's where supply equals demand that we will find the equilibrium, and the equilibrium is what we'll use to determine total surplus. So the question is, where in this picture would the industry supply be if we could wave our wand and turn the industry into perfect competition? And the argument that we're going to make is that the marginal cost curve of the monopolist would be about equal to the summation of MCs of a bunch of tiny little perfectly competitive firms. So if we could break this monopolist up into 100 perfectly competitive firms, each of which had their own marginal cost, each of which had their own supply curve, which was their marginal cost, we could then add up those little marginal costs, and that they would be approximately equal to this big marginal cost of the monopolist under certain conditions. Okay? If that's true, then this would be the supply under competition. Remember, the monopolist does not have a supply curve, but under competition, this would be the supply. Now, of course, it would be chopped off somewhere and the lower tail, but that would be the supply. If that were the supply, it would be the crossing of supply and demand that would determine the competitive equilibrium. We'll call it QC and PC. And the total surplus in this case would be the triangle or triangle-ish shape bound by these three dots. And the total surplus would be in fact bigger than it would under monopoly. And the part that we would have lost, i.e. the deadweight loss, would be this area right here. So this is what we think the deadweight loss of monopoly is.